right, it's that time of the year again. It's the UXI Vodcast series, and we would love to share a little bit more information with you as to how our quarterly player report works. With me is Heinrich Peincheck. He's going to walk it through with us. Heinrich, pretend as if I'm a parent. I've just received my son's report.
Step by step.
And I don't have a clue what's going on. So please take my hand.
So, yeah. Okay, walking through our report from start to finish, we're starting off with just a basic letter. This is coming straight from our director of rugby. So this will be an overview of, from a national point of view, what's happened across the UXI Rugby Institutes. Followed by that letter to give you a little bit of insight. There's then an institute-specific letter that's coming straight from the coach, explaining to the parents and obviously the players know, but explaining to the parents what's happened and what their son or daughter has been through.
So Heinrich, no catches or codes in this. I can just read from start to finish.
As is, and if you still have some questions, you drop them an email, and they'll be happy to answer those questions. So then getting into the stuff that we enjoy, the numbers. So looking at this, at the top we just have a snapshot overview, position, age of the player, and some biometric data, so height, weight, and anthropometrics data, height and weight and their current body fat. This is an example of what a first year's report would look like, by the way. They all look the same, but there's some differences which I'll get into. Okay. Then, as the S&C spoke about, step one when all of our players arrive is they go through a movement prep, and the movement prep is to highlight any possible mobility issues which can lead to injuries. So at this section of the report, the goal is to meet the target score of 8 or more. So yeah, if you fall under one of these, it's not a train smash, but your target goal is 8. And yeah, anything more than that, then move on to the relative phase.
Just a quick question on that. What happens if he didn't hit that?
If he doesn't hit that, I'll show you in the next report, but then he doesn't move on to the relative phase. Right. So I'll show you what that looks like. So in the relative phase, we've got all our different strength and conditioning tests on the left. So here are our strength-based tests and our conditioning-based tests. So our strength-based tests, we do an upper body 1 rep max on the bench. Here's his goal as per the SA norms. His relative goal, so 1.5 times his body weight, and here's his score. Obviously, in this example, not meeting the criteria. His 3 rep max squat. The reason we use a 3 rep max squat is a 1 rep max with the 1 rep max, because of the amount of weight involved, it's a little bit more riskier, so we opt for the 3 rep max with relative body weight scores, and then pull-ups, your max pull-up. So in this example, we haven't met any of our criteria, which is you can sort of see on the radar chart. So again, similar to the FMS, on the outer part of the radar chart, anything on or above will be represented as sort of on that.
Okay.
On that
so
edge.
we want to be on the outermost points.
On the outermost points, and this is the position average. So not the institute average or the average for UXI. It's the position average across the country. So this is how you compare to other loose forwards.
All right.
Okay. At the bottom of this, we've got our conditioning. So we've got the repeated sprint test, which is an anaerobic-based test, again with a goal and a baseline. In the anaerobic test, the more meters you get, the better. So in this example, he's under. In the Bronco, which is an aerobic-based test, here you want to be below the goal. It's how quick you can get it done. So in this example, didn't meet either of the goals. Okay, then we'll move on to what a senior report would look like. So we have the same anthropometric data at the top. So this player who looks exactly the same is slightly older. And here you will see there's no FMS because he's been with us for a year. So he started on the relative and he's already on the conversion. So here we can see his old results. These are his results from 2024, and then his baseline for the year. Like any rugby club, any sort of franchise, at the start of pre-season, you're gonna have your baseline test. Things change over the off-season, things like that. So there's your previous scores and how you ended 2024, your new baseline, and still same thing, your goal. So in this example, this player's moved on to conversion phase, and you can see here what it looks like when you meet your goals, even though he has exceeded his goals in most cases. It just shows as max 100%.
Okay.
Then if we look at the conversion phase, for those who are in the conversion phase, if you're not in any, if you haven't progressed, it's just not there in your report. In this example, there's a conversion phase, and this is all our power-based movement. So vertical jump, which is a lower body power, there's the relative goal and his baseline score. Adjusted vertical jump, that is simply your reach height minus your jump height, which gives you your actual score. Then we have an upper body power test, which is your medicine ball throw, 1 rep max hang clean, which is an Olympic lift, sort of a full body power exercise, and then your relative 1 rep max, again, that is just to your body weight. And then, like you asked earlier, what if someone doesn't pass the FMS? So that's what our next example looks like. So if you fail to pass your FMS, you'll have your FMS report. As a first year, you'll see there you scored 7, which means you haven't met the criteria to safely move on to the next phase of training. And in that example, we then move on to the next section straight immediately, which is your rugby development testing. And this is our skill-based test on field, which is assessed by our skills coaches. Okay. So everything from, they have certain criteria where they measure all of these skills. I won't take you through all of that, but whether or not you achieve a particular aspect of the tackle tech, so they'll got criteria you must meet, you'll get a certain percentage based on how many criteria you meet. So we do it on tackle tech, carrying into contact, breakdown, a pod pass, a pocket pass, a 5-meter pass, and an 8-meter pass. And based on that, there's your goal. You want to obviously max it out. Again, your position average and a radar chart. And that's a rugby development sort of skills testing.
Okay, so what do we do if a player does not pass that FMS and he can't go into the next phase? How do we improve those FMS scores?
Well, that would be a little bit more for the S&C side, but I can imagine the S&C are going to put them on a sort of specific program to improve that mobility, to help them. They would be testing this, I think, more frequently, so to get you into that strength phase. So then moving on, if we have, let's say, for example, someone's injured and we don't have any sort of testing data for that, then the report will look fairly similar. We'll just report back as injured. But obviously at UXI, we take it one step further. So if you are injured, we try and give you sort of special attention. So when a player is injured, if I zoom out a little bit, we don't forget about them. So this is, if you are injured and you don't have your testing data, your strength, all your strength testing data, because you're injured, you get injury report attached, and the injury report, there will be a letter from Vince. Vince takes us through what UXI Rugby Institute's injury protocols are like, and how those and how we return you back into the program, what the entire process. He explains in this message to the parents. And then your particular physiotherapist or your biokineticist will give a more detailed report for that particular player. So in this example, he explains that I had a AC joint injury to the shoulder, explains where you are in your rehab program and what sort of the plan is going forward for that particular player.
Okay.
And then not completely last, then just from the sort of on-field program, we then get the comments from the coaches. So there'll be comments from the head coach, which is on-field, saying what are some of my strengths or the player's strengths, what are some of his work-ons, and sort of a general feel for or how they experienced working with him. Same from the strength and conditioning point of view. Strength and conditioning coaches will comment on where you're strong and where your work-ons are. Then we move on to my stuff, the match stats. So you'll get a detailed breakdown of all the match stats from the particular game. So in term 1, we haven't played an awful lot of games, so your performance profile can look in places really good, sometimes really poor. If you've, for example, played 3 games and you've maybe made 2 passes in one game, it's going to sort of impact your score. But the thing is with the thing with performance profiles is the more games we play, the more data we get, the more accurate that becomes. So as the year goes on, this will become more and more accurate. But it's to give you an idea for now. So in this example, we can see we have our total analyzed matches. 3 of those matches were for union or club. You would see how many are institutes, how many are union clubs, your minutes played, and your points scored. Then we look at the various performance indicators that we measure. So here we've got our carry dominance and how many carries per game. A dominant carry is deemed to, at the point of contact, do you, as the ball carrier, dominate that point of contact? So we draw an imaginary line. If you get your hips through that, then you dominated the contact. And then at the top, we've got total touches, average touches per game, tackle breaks, breaks per carry. So this is a break per carry is basically we take your breaks divided by your carries. So it basically says when I carry the ball, there's a 40% chance that I'll have a tackle break.
Okay.
Possession losses and handling errors per game. Our total passes, we measure pass to be effective, not on whether or not you, Andre, as when I passed you caught it or not, because you might drop it, but it's whether or not that ball arrives slightly in front of the receiving player in line with his torso. That we deem a positive, effective pass. So it's not outcome based. It's outcome based, but for the person making the pass.
And then the player catches the ball next to you, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. And then we look at our defense. So we've got turnovers, infringements, yellow and red cards for the naughty boys. And then we've got our tackles, our total tackles, your average per game, tackle dominance. And so I'm not going to dive into too much. If you do have questions, the analysts do dive into detail with this, with your sons or your daughters. So if you have questions, ask them. If they're still unclear, you're welcome to email me. But just for some context, these percentages you see here, these are made up percentages. This is the average for all centers in this example, or it's the position average. So in this example, he's got 100% carry dominance, and the position average is 88%.
Okay.
And that's the same for all these different charts.
Okay, I understand.
So here's our tackle completion, which is a work on. Tackle dominance, which is a work on. Offload, he hasn't made any, something he might want to look to do.
So just the golden section and the percentage in the middle of the arch is what I've achieved or my son's achieved.
Yes.
The black line is the position average.
Position average, yeah.
Okay.
And obviously you can't exceed more than 100%. Okay. So that's our defense. And then at the bottom, we've got our breakdown. So our total cleanouts. So cleanout is when there's an attempt to remove a player from the breakdown. A bridge is an arrival looking to protect the ball. And then our poachers, which is obviously on defense. And then here we've got our total arrivals and our total. This takes into account our execution here takes our clean out and our bridge into account. Okay. And generally we find bridge to be the higher score because you're just protecting. It's more common for guys to slip off a clean out and poorly execute a clean out. It's kind of just something I've picked up over the years. And then on the second page of your match stats, this is more focused around your work rate. So everything in red is a quick standout. That's where your work rate is below the position average. Anything in green, you're above. Anything in orange, in this example, there isn't any oranges, but anything in orange will have a little line and you'll be bang on the position average.
Okay.
So we've got on attack, we've got touches per game, carries per game, passes per game, offloads per game, handling errors per game, and then on defense. Now, it's always remember to interpret this with a pinch of salt. Obviously, different players have different roles. If you're a loose forward, you might be the loose forward who's working on the edge, looking to be more attacking, or you might be the one in the middle who's doing a lot of carrying. So understanding your roles, which would happen in your PDP sessions with the coaches, understanding your roles on the field will help you interpret this to see, am I effective in that? Because obviously you would, if your roles are X, Y, Z, that's where you need to be above average. And if the other stuff's not your role, it's okay to be below, it's not your role.
Okay.
And then lastly, your ROI, your return on investment. This is an overview of where your time has been spent for the term. So your rugby on field, 30%, rugby conditioning, 22%, two of the bigger ones. Then your academic programs, 16%. And these will obviously differ Mental performance, these are sort of your sessions and other sessions where there's maybe one-on-ones. Then our life skills program with our life skill coaches. Our team building, these are the social things just to keep everyone in good spirits. Orientation would have driven this up in term 1. As the terms go on, it might come down a bit, but the coaches are always planning something fun, whether it's a recovery session at the beach, that would be something that falls in there because the team building aspect is quite strong there. Yeah. And then rugby understanding, this is our video analysis sessions, PDP sessions, anything like that.
Okay.
And that's in a nutshell the report.
Great. I think I understand it well enough. And if we've got any questions, you said we must contact Academy analyst directly.
Yes,
Otherwise they can get in touch.
No, they
with
can
you.
get in touch with any of the national staff directly, myself or Dr. Steve.
Okay.
When we send out the reports, first of all, if you're watching this video and you haven't received a report, contact us. We probably, during the onboarding process, your email may have been captured incorrectly, and you might not have received it, or it was never on the application form, which means it's not on the system. So if you're watching this and you haven't received your report, reach out to us. Either it wasn't sent because of a email error, or there's a finance department issue. So that's another thing to remember. If you've watched the episode with Carol Jacobs, if you haven't received a report, it's most likely because you've fallen behind and like she mentioned, they've got processes, they're not trying to cut you off straight away, but it means they're trying to reach out, trying to make a plan, and that's sort of not working. But yeah.
Great. Heinrich, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Andre.
Great. I'm sure that's understandable enough. Until next time, have a good one.
Cheers.